Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Lau with Kenshan Crafts. Today I wanted to share with you guys some very beautiful pens that were sent to me to review by Benjamin Rivera, and he is the owner of his small business. His small business was inspired by his father, Benjamin Rivera Sr. He taught a lot of literature and art, and so from that passion, Benjamin Rivera created this business, and he does a lot of hand-turned pens. Now, he doesn't turn them himself, but he works with a skilled craftsman in India who hand turns all of these pens, and he also works with a ton of other resin makers to send these blank resins over to his craftsmen in India to hand turn all of these pens. And so there are 7 models, as you can see. He sent me 6 of the 7 models that I'll share today. Each one of the models vary in price, and half the models come in cartridge converters, the other half are piston fillers, and so the cost increases from cartridge converter to a piston model. And so you'll find that one of these might fit your budget and fit your style, but we're gonna take a closer look at each one of these models today. And so if any of these are interesting to you, definitely go check him out. He does have an Instagram and will also be on Shopify as well. His store will be there, but he's fairly new, and one of my friend, Sherise, she recommended me to him as someone who is very passionate about pens, and I'm just like so thankful that she did that. So thank you, Sherise, if you're watching this video. And so Benjamin reached out to me and asked me if I could review these for him, and I just told him, of course, I would be more than happy to do that for you. It's a wonderful way to just make connections with people, build relationships, and also try different pens, and be able to give my own opinions and share with you guys how these pens write and what I think about them. So I am not being paid to do any of this. He just sent them up to me, and I will be reviewing them and sending them back to him. So these pens will be featured at the DC Pen Show, where he will be going to at the beginning of August. So if you guys are going to the DC Pen Show, definitely go check him out if you are interested in any of these pens. So without further ado, let's turn the camera around and take a closer look at all these pens.
All right, so we have the pens here. I have them organized by cartridge converter pens and piston filler pens. First, I'll talk about what you guys get when you do buy these pens, and then we will take a look at each one of them closer, compare them with 1 or 2 other pens that I have that I feel like most of you guys will have. I have a TWSBI and a Lamy All-Star to compare with these pens, and then we will take a look at the pros and cons that I've written down, as well as a small writing sample. Now, all of these pens from Benjamin's pen business, they use number 6 Yovo nibs, so I will say that they're all pretty much relatively the same in terms of writing experience. So if you enjoy a Yovo feel, Yovo pen, Yovo nib experience, then these will be up your alley. So when you buy a piston filler pen, which will run a bit more expensive than the other model, the cartridge converter models, you will get this lovely wooden box that is branded with their logo, Indelible, What Dreams Are Made Of. It's a lovely, simple little box here to keep your pen safe, in travel as well as storage. And then it just opens up to the side here, and you will also get a lovely pen kimono. This pen kimono is super nice. I like it. So the outer texture, it has a bit of a texture. It's not completely soft or smooth. I mean, it is soft, but it's not smooth. And then it has this one long string here that you unravel, and it opens up to this lovely, super soft, smooth, silky feeling interior. So the lining on the interior here, I don't think it's silk, but it feels like silk, and it's very soft. So it will keep your pens very safe inside of there. So yes, if you buy a piston filler, you will get both of these. If you buy a cartridge converter, you only get the kimono, which is fine. I think I prefer to just have the kimono, but these are extra gifts, or just an extra bit of gift that you get for purchasing the pen. Now let's take a look at the cartridge converter pens first. So, like I said, there are 7 models that Benjamin makes, and these all they're pretty different from each other. So we'll start with the cheapest or the least expensive model first, and that is the Outtro model. So let me just also bring out my book here, because I have my notes that I took. So this is the Outtro model, and this is I believe the god of justice, or the goddess of justice. And like I said earlier, Benjamin's father is the one that teaches literature, and a lot of these, all the pens are named after gods and goddesses of Greek or Babylonian literature. So I think that's really interesting if you're into that kind of history stuff. So this again is the Outtro model. It is this one specifically is acrylic. The price range on this one ranges from 140 to 190. So I believe that depends on the material that is used to make this pen. So it sounds like this Outtro model can handle multiple different materials. But this one specifically, I feel like it is acrylic resin. It is very light. So I would compare this to a lot of pen makers out there. It is very simple, but just look at that material. The chatoyance is so cool. I really like this green material here. So this pen is it's like a very tealy green. It's super, super green. It doesn't have a lot of blue in it. So this one, I have written down the weight of this is 13 grams unposted. So if you like unposted, this is actually a really good length too. If you like it posted, this pen, it does post, but it gets to be extremely long, and the weight is still pretty manageable. It's about 22 grams. In my notes, I mentioned that it does have a bit of a flare here, which is really nice if you tend to write closer to the nib. That flare will help stop your fingers. And the one con I have is that the threads are slightly sharp, but they're not uncomfortable. The pros are that it's got that flare. This pen is lightweight, and it posts pretty securely. And the clip here is also pretty flexible, so it can definitely very easily be clipped into pen clips, loops, your shirt pocket if you want. So very, very functional, very easy to use. All right, so those were my pros and cons of this pen. I did some stroke tests on the pens, on the nib, and it was smooth in all strokes. So these nibs are tuned pretty well. I only had one out of all 8 of these pens that I received that had a nib that wasn't completely tuned well. So if you end up with a nib that isn't tuned very well, you just have to reach out to Benjamin and he will send out a new one to you. But definitely communicate with him first to see what your options are. So that is the Outtro model, and I'm just going to then put it next to 2 pens, the Lamy All-Star as well as the TWSBI. They're basically the same size, so I probably will just show you one of these pens. But you can see here that it is slightly longer than both of these pens. And when unposted, that all 3 pens are basically the same length. So I think a lot of people love using the TWSBI or the Lamy Safaris. Then this one is the perfect size for you. And they're both the same. They're very lightweight, both of them. So yeah, you like the weight of TWSBIs. I think this one is closer to TWSBI. The Lamy Safaris tend to be just a lot lighter. I think the Lamy Safari is about 10 grams. And so this one is just slightly heavier. Next up is the Nabu model. Now this model is probably my favorite. I prefer this one. So I saw two of the resin designs that Ben shared with me, and I asked him if I could see them both. So these two are they're both Nabu models. You can see here they are pretty different in terms of the finish of the resin work. So this one is more up my alley of like the Leonardo pens that I collect, because it's got this lovely chatoyant swirls and sparkles. Absolutely lovely. And then this one is more of a cracked design, which I also love. Now this is more of like this beautiful magenta fuchsia color. It's actually shown up very gorgeous on the camera. So it's really, really beautiful. So the thing about the Nabu model is it is a flat top. So you can see that it's not exactly flat. It's just a small dome at the top. If you could see that. Slightly domed, very, very ever so slightly. Same thing with the finial and finial here. It's not entirely flat, but you can mostly say it's flat, but it's very smooth all around. The material here is just gorgeous. It's really nice. And the only stop that I feel really are these rings, so the metal parts of the pen are what stops the smoothness of the whole pen, but otherwise this pen is done really well. So you can see here that the different models, one has black finials, the other one is just the same material all the way through, so you can get either versions, and I believe there are just so many resin swirl patterns that Benjamin works with to create these pens. So this one runs for about $250, and I will say that the unscrewing is super, super smooth, and it is so lovely. Now, some pens don't screw in and out so well. Some of these pens, I will talk in a little bit, don't screw in too well. This one is super smooth. I don't know how their master craftsmanship does it, but these threads were done really well. Okay, so the pros of this Nabu model, this pen itself is only 16 grams, so if you write unposted, I think 16 grams is super, super comfortable, and it's weighty enough. Sometimes pens that are 10 to 12 or 10 to 13 can be very, very light for me, and if you also don't prefer lighter pens, the Nabu is the perfect middle ground. This one posted is about 29 grams. However, it does not post so well. You can see what I just did here. It does not post so deeply. It barely goes in. So that is the one con to this model, is if you are a die-hard poster. So in con here, not the best poster. It is very long. So I do not recommend posting the Nabu model. But I think that 16 grams is the perfect weight to write long sessions with. Your hands will not get cramped, and the grip here is also not terribly thin. It is a bit on the thinner side, but it's not terribly thin. It's super comfortable in my hands. The body of this pen is very streamlined. It does not really taper at all in the whole barrel here. There is almost no step down. It is smooth transition, and then got the flare here, which is really useful and helpful, ergonomic for a lot of people. And the threading here is, you can feel the sharpness, but it's not as sharp as the Outtro model. So I'll say that it is not uncomfortable, and I actually like the fact that there's a little bit of a texture there so that it can kind of stop my fingers, but it's not uncomfortable at all. For left-handers, I don't think that this thread will not be an issue. To me, it does I can feel it more actually if you're a left-hander. So it's not the smoothest. So if you're a left-hander and you don't like a bit of a sharpness, then yeah, this pen will not be one for you. But I only say that because I'm not used to holding pens on my left hand. If you're used to holding pens on your left hand and you're okay with a little bit of sharp threading, then should be okay. But like I said, it's sharp, but it's very, very comfortable. The clip is slightly flexible. It's actually pretty good. It has a little bit of a give to it. And I'm sorry, my camera is just fixating in and out of focus. Okay, so this pen next to the TWSBI is also a little bit longer. So I believe the Nabu and the Outtro model are basically the same length. When you write unposted, now I will not compare these two posted because the two of these are really long posted. So next to each other, the Nabu model is definitely longer. So the Nabu will also be longer than the Outtro model. Again, like I said, I think I prefer the Nabu model the most. Like, this probably would be one I would love to have. This resin is just gorgeous. I would prefer it in like a gold or rose gold trim. So if he has that, maybe I will buy it from him. All right. The last model of the cartridge converters is the Musa. So this is a very interesting resin here that was chosen. I love the amber that was used in here. I'm not sure what this type of patterning is called, so if you know, put it down in the comments, please. But it's not as chatoyant as I thought it would be in person, but you can see in camera that it is absolutely beautiful. So if this is your type of design, now this might be a very specific kind of design for somebody to like. You know, for me, I think it's pretty specific. It makes me think of like hot cocoa or some kind of chocolate, caramel, really beautiful brown colors. I love it. And so for this pen, it is extremely big, as you can see. Like it's the same length really as the Outtro model, but also girthier, like a much thicker pen. Now the finials here are a little bit more conical. So it is very, very similar to my Leonardo Momento Zeros. And the end finial here is also the same. It's conical there as well. And the clip here is a little bit stiffer than the other two. So, and it has a roller type of clip. However, this clip does not roll at all. It just looks like a roller clip. The Leonardo clips, this looks almost exactly like a Leonardo clip, except that the ball here is a lot bigger and it doesn't roll. All right, so the uncapping and capping is actually also very smooth. So that means that the threading was done really well. So kudos to the craftsman. This pen does not come with a flare, so you might slip down into the nib very easily. The pen body is also pretty well flushed. It has no step down. It just kind of tapers really well. The threading here is smoother than the other two cartridge converter models. However, I can still feel some kind of texture here. So if you like that kind of a texture feel to stop your fingers like that, it is still there. It works really well. It's very comfortable. And this grip section is definitely thicker than the other two. So if you prefer a thicker grip section, this was a good model. This Musa model, unposted, the pen itself is 13 grams. So it's lighter than the Nabu. This pen does post pretty well. So it posts pretty deep, and I think it's pretty secure, yep. Once posted, it's about 29 grams, which is pretty heavy for a very lengthy pen. It's long and a little bit heavy for longer writing sessions. If you do prefer that kind of weight, if you have a larger hands or you prefer that weight, and then this one posts pretty nicely. However, the cap here is actually pretty thick, and so I will feel the cap step down. Yeah, so you will feel it on the perlicute here of your hand, and so like it rests here, but I can feel it. I don't quite like that feeling. of that step down touching my finger, my hand. So I just would use this one unposted, and it is a perfectly fine length. So let's take a look at some of the pros and cons. Like I said, it's light and comfy. It's got smooth threading. Now the cons, I had a few cons here. The clip is a bit stiff, no flare. Posting requires more friction. Yeah, so you're gonna have to like push it down just a little bit so that you know it is in there. Otherwise, like it can easily come off. But once you push it in just enough, it'll stay really well. So in comparison with the TWSBI, it is again just slightly shorter, or it's longer than the TWSBI. So if we compare all three of the Indelible pen models, you will see that they are essentially all about the same, with going from the Nabu to Outtro and then the Musa being the longest, but all relatively the same. Okay, next up, let's take a look at the other models, which are the cartridge converters. Now, he did not have an Ogma model to show me, to send to me to share with you guys, but I'll insert a picture here of what the Ogma model looks like, and it is roughly $280. So that is the cheapest of the 4 piston filler models that he has. And I think it's a very interesting pen model. I personally would not get it for myself, but based on the pens that he has sent me, I really like how they are finished, and the quality of the pens are really nice. Now, I will say one thing about all of the piston filler models. He does use brass pistons on the inside of these pens, and so that makes the pens slightly heavier than normal. A lot of piston fillers tend to use plastic as their internal piston. These ones use brass pistons, and so they're very heavy. So just that is something to think about when you decide if you want a piston filler from Indelible. So the first model here is the Metis model. Now I like the Metis model's design. I think it's really cool. So this is Metis. It's got, so let me just share this one. I really like this color. It looks like pink mother of pearl. It's so gorgeous. The finial here is definitely domed. Yeah, it's really cute. And then the end finial here is flat. It is completely flat, and so because of that, it is a piston filler knob that you can screw or turn. And then the clip here is not terribly flexible. It is a bit stiff, but it's got this like dip here, which allows you to just put it into your shirt pocket or anything very easily. And because of that design, I believe that's why it's not so flexible, so that it doesn't like just fall off whenever you put it into a loop. So I like this finish. I'm just gonna have to say that again. Like the feel of this material is like smooth marble. I love it. That's the kind of Italian kind of resin acrylic that I like, especially when it's finished in such a way. So yeah, this to me feels like my Leonardo Momento Zero pens. All right, so this is the shortest, I believe, of all the models. So again, the Metis model, this one runs for $325. It is a heavier pen. It feels more substantial, but at the same time, that doesn't mean that it's right for everybody. Like it is a bit of a heavier pen. So the threading here is also very smooth. I love it. That's, again, the threading is done so well in a lot of these. This one is 32 grams unposted. It's very heavy. So like, but however, like just holding it right now, if I'm not writing, like it feels comfortable. But I know that with the number being a 32-gram pen, in longer writing sessions, it's going to feel a little bit uncomfortable after a while. Now, another con to this pen is that it's so smooth. Now, if you have oily fingers like me, or sometimes you know, like even dry fingers or dry hands, it is very smooth. So like my hands could probably slip in and out of this pen very easily. And the threading here is it's at the tip of the grip. It's not at the top of the grip, it's at the end of it. So it does act like a flare and a stopper for your fingers, but it's not entirely like a flare. So it doesn't really do that job the same. So it's a very, very slippery smooth pen. Yeah, so to me, that does feel a little bit different from my Leonardo pens. My Leonardo pens are smooth like this, but they're not slippery, and I feel I stop here. So I believe that if this threading was done here instead, at the top here, it would have not felt so slippery. But I also think that the threading being here at the end here is part of the charm and design of this sleek pen. It does like, it's a little bit more bulbous in the center, but it's a very smooth taper all around, no step down on this pen. And by step down, I've said that a few times, but step down is where there's a bit of an incline from the grip to the barrel. So like a little bit of a step, you know, like how you take a step versus a ramp. This one is like a ramp. It is just smooth all the way down, and there's no like step here between the section and the body. And then I also just had him send me this one too. It's got some blue chatoyant material in there, but I personally don't like it in person as much. The color doesn't excite me, but that's really just personal aesthetic preferences. In terms of the pen design, like I said, it is a very unique, interesting design. So I do really like that. And all the clips come with the indelible leaf motif there. Hopefully you can see that. Yeah, it's very, very cute. I believe the nib also does the same. Yep. So yeah, that isn't engraved into the nib. It is laser engraved or laser printed, which is cheaper, and it cuts down on costs, which is fine. I don't think that's a major thing for me. So that is the Metis model. Let's take a look at the size comparison of the Metis model with my TWSBI Eco. So you can see there they are exactly the same length. When unposted, don't worry about my Eco rolling like that. They're plastic pens, they can handle that. If that bothers you, then look away. All right, so unposted, they are roughly the same length, yeah. So what I'm seeing here is that the grip section is longer on this Metis model, but the barrel is longer for the TWSBI. And the nib, wow. Okay, so I think, yeah, the TWSBI Eco uses number 5 nib, and so the Indelible pen uses a number 6 nib. So you can see the difference in the nib size right there. It's a pretty big difference. Okay, now if you are interested in knowing how many turns it takes for these pens to uncap, I will have all that information in my description box. I'm just not going to talk about them in the video, but if you pause, you will also see it written down on my journal here. Okay, the next model is the Kronos model. Or actually, let's do Clio, because I'll just go down the middle, or down the list here. This is the Clio model. I chose this color because it is like an olivey green. It's not really my type of color. It looked prettier in the picture than in person, but again, that's probably just personal taste, and I just am not a fan of this kind of color in a pen if it's just all in one color. So it looks to me like the Clio models are all one color. I have not seen him have a Clio model that has different resin designs. The body itself is also not resin. To me, it feels like aluminum, some type of metal. It does not feel like acrylic. And you can hear Yeah, there's a little bit of squeaking going on there, and that's like metal on metal squeaking. So the threads here, because this material is metal, I believe, the threading is actually very, very smooth for metal. It is not sharp at all, but the metal on the threading on the inside of this cap is metal. So I think that's where that sound is coming from. So this pen itself is 34 grams unposted. It is a very heavy pen. Again, the internal piston is brass, so that is what makes this very heavy. So this pen is slightly back weighted, unposted. You can see on this pen, it's got a bit of a bulbous shape here at the end, and then it tapers very quickly at the end there. Okay, and then from the barrel to the grip section is the tiniest step down. It is not that big. And the threads here are very, very comfy, but there is no flare at the end of the grip section here. But that's not really a problem. I think this pen is really interesting because the weight is centered right here, and it is also resting on the perlicue of my hand, which I think is very interesting because, like, most of the time, a lot of times, like, you prefer pens where the weight is right here by the nib so that you can write, and then it writes on its own weight. But for this one, like, it rests nicely right there, so it's actually comfortable for how heavy it is. I haven't used this for long writing, but I believe with how heavy it is, it will become uncomfortable. So this pen doesn't post deep, and it isn't secure. So it will come off really easily. Yeah, I do not recommend posting this pen as it is already long enough. But the total weight of this pen is 45 grams if you decide to post, or, you know, the pen itself is 45 grams altogether. This clip actually has a roller here. Unlike the other model, the roller here, there's actually a roller here. So you can roll this into pockets and loops and stuff like that very easily. So, and then I forgot to say the cap here is just a small cone at the top, and the base or the end finial is the same as well. And this pen is also faceted. It's interesting that there's a lot of facets. I think there's at least between 10 and 16 facets. I mean, I'm not going to count. I'm just going to lose my place because there's so many facets that it almost feels round and smooth. But it is faceted, and I don't feel the facets that much. So this pen will be $350. This is the most expensive model. And I believe that is because of the metal that was used. And the threading it's smooth despite the squeaky sounds that it sometimes makes. I'm not sure how else they can improve on that. That might be the one thing that they could work on improving, because over time, metal on metal is fine, but it will wear out over time. You want threading to either be resin on resin or metal on metal. If it's metal on resin, that's not going to work so well. But metal on metal will kind of wear over time as well. So, I mean, they all do. But like I said, I'm hearing those squeaking sounds. So if that doesn't bother you, then this is a model you can definitely try. Okay. In comparison to the TWSBI, this is very, very long. Unposted writing, it's just slightly longer, but not by much. So I believe all of their models, you can say that they are pretty akin to a TWSBI Eco in terms of unposted length. Now this one is the longest pen in the bunch. I would consider this like the Momento Zero Grande or the SD oversize. It's very long, but it is not that thick as those pens Let me see. Well, it might be as thick as the Grande. I actually feel like this grip section here is very comfy. So let's talk a little bit about this. This one is very different. This is a Kronos model, which is the oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to talk about the gods and goddesses of each pen, but obviously Kronos here is time, so the god of time. I really like this color and this resin. It is so gorgeous. So you can see there are lovely rosy light pinks and contrasted by purples, black, and it's even got some clear parts, so there's a lot of depth to this cracked ice design here. I chose this pen basically for that. There were lots of other designs, like finishes for this model, but I really like this one. So this material is actually cellulose acetate, which is the same material that is used in my Aurora 88 pen. So the feeling of this pen is very smooth, very like almost like expensive luxury type of feeling. It feels different from acrylic, I'll say. Okay, so I can see here that the clip here is set into the cap here. It's not a ring around the cap. And this clip here is very stiff, yeah. But that's also a good thing. It will not fall off of any loops that you put into. But even though it doesn't have a ring, the cap is made of two different cellulose acetate parts. You can see the line there. Hopefully, yeah. So it's separated. That means there's two parts that were made or used to make this. And then the ring, cap ring here, there's two thin cap rings. And then another cap ring at the end here for the end finial, which is your piston knob. All right, now this, because it's made of cellulose acetate, this pen is cartridge converter. If it was not made of cellulose acetate, then this pen would be a piston filler. I think that because this is cellulose acetate, the threading here was not done to, like, actually, the threading is, it's very smooth up to a point. So let's thread this in. So like right here, it starts to get very, like there's friction, a lot more friction as I'm trying to close more of it. Yeah, now it's finally closed. So the last like half turn is very, very stiff. You can see it takes a lot of effort for me to twist it. That's one full turn. Okay, then after the full turn, it's very easy. So this one's about 2 turns. And then because this is a cartridge converter, a cellulose acetate material, this part here is also very, very hard to unscrew. So not a lot of pens have this issue, but I've only seen one pen, and I believe it's the pen I got from Gold Spot that was a mystery dip pen, and it had the same issue where it was very hard to unscrew the section here. The pen barrel is also super thick. You can see there, it is a very thick barrel. Yeah. Which means that the material here is really sturdy. But like you can see here, it's so hard to twist here. This is not a pen for if you do not have a lot of strength for this. Feedback I will say about this pen is if they can somehow figure out how to make this screwing section for the cellulose acetate pens to be smoother and easier, this is going to be a problem for some folks, because you have to undo this for cartridge in order to fill your pens through the cartridge converter, and this is not going to be easy. So now, if you like this lovely material, you can probably ask Benjamin to get this material on the other models where they're easier, but this is cellulose acetate, so it might have the same issue if it was made into the other models. But I'm not sure if this is an issue of this model or if it's an issue of the cellulose acetate material, but I do not like the fact that it is so hard to unscrew the barrel from the grip in order to access the cartridge converter. And I can also see a little bit of a gap there, so I'm not even sure if it's completely closed off. So yeah, other than that, I love the material of this pen. So yeah, that's all I have to say about this pen. And then it again, it's super long in comparison to the TWSBI. It is at least another head taller. So, and then when it's unposted in writing, now I didn't talk about it being posted or not. This pen can post, but again, I would not recommend that. It is a very long pen posted. It is 33 grams posted and 19 grams unposted. So I prefer this unposted. It is beautiful. 19 grams is like also another perfect size weight for me. And when these two pens are next to each other unposted, you can see that it is just, again, very slightly longer. Let me just insert a clip of me doing a little writing sample. Again, all these pens write the same, but you can see here that these are fine nibs that he sent me, and I think that the writing quality is really nice. So his pens are tuned by himself, or they're inspected, and they all are really great. And so, like, when you get a nib by him, use a really good ink. Do not use a dry Wearing Ghoul or Ferris wheel shimmer ink. You will not be able to tell if it's the nib or the ink, but most of the time it is just those really dry shimmer inks. I used the Waterman Serenity Blue in here, and it wrote so buttery smooth out of this fine nib. And so when you use a new ink with a new pen, you want to do some like line strokes like this to see if every single stroke is smooth and there's no like scratchy feedback. And I feel all regular feedback with this nib, and I barely put pressure, and it is very good. And just fast writing, the ink keeps up. So very wonderfully tuned nibs that work really well if you have a very good ink in here. That is all I have to share with you guys for today. These are very gorgeous pens. Really well done, again, except for the very last one. I don't have anything to complain about the build of each of these models. And the weight of these pens, again, like I said, is going to really depend on if you prefer a heavier pen to a lighter pen. The piston fillers are going to be heavier in general. I don't think that they use plastic pistons for any of the models. One suggestion I have is for the piston filler pen models to maybe have another model that uses plastic piston, because that will help reduce the weight of the pens. Because as of right now, all three of the models that I have of the piston fillers are very heavy. As you can see here, 32, 34, and well, the Kronos is 19, which the Kronos is it's not a piston filler, it's a cartridge converter. So the Metis and the Clio model that he gave me were both above 30 grams, and that's very heavy for a pen that's unposted. So that is a suggestion I have. Another suggestion I think that would be helpful for Benjamin, work on the threading of the cellulose acetate model or the Kronos model. I don't have another Kronos model to compare with, so I can't pinpoint what the issue for this one is. So that would be something for Benjamin to look into. so that when you guys get your pens, you are satisfied with it. So let me know down in the comments if there's anything that I missed in terms of like what could make these pens better. He's starting off. He would appreciate any suggestions or on improvements, or just maybe just also write down what you like about these pens down in the comments, and I will also relay the messages to him. Yeah, so if you have any other questions, put them down in the comments below. I would love to read them and work with Benjamin to get those answered for you guys. I think that it's great to support small maker companies. Again, thank you to Sherise for hooking me up with Benjamin to collaborate with him and review his pens for you guys. I totally appreciate both Sherise and Benjamin for allowing me to have this opportunity to share with you guys. So thank you so much for joining me in reviewing all these pen models. I appreciate every one of you guys so much. So I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.